Dear younger me, you don't have to pretend to be strong. It's not weakness to ask for help. I remember growing up in quite a difficult lifestyle. I could probably count on two hands how many one-room hotels and motels my family of 6 stayed in with 2 beds. It was intense. I think when you put that many people in one small crammed space, it's hard to navigate feelings and emotions, and it's hard to navigate even finding your identity when you're in an affluent area and your bus stop is outside of a Motel 6. I remember the first time that our family moved from a standard house to a hotel because finances were tight and difficult. I got to the school bus stop right outside of the hotel and was overcome by panic because I couldn't bear the feeling of the shame that I knew I was going to experience when I got onto the bus and people saw this is where I lived. So actually for years while living in a hotel, I actually walked about 15-20 minutes to the previous bus stop that was at an apartment complex so that nobody would know where I lived. And I remember the first time I had this brilliant idea. I got on the bus stop at a previous apartment complex, and then the bus went to the hotel where I lived to pick up people, and I didn't realize that there were other students that were living there as well. And when they came on the bus, you could see like they wouldn't even make direct eye contact with anybody. They looked down as everyone murmured comments, and some people laughed, and people had remarks that were just mean. And I thought to myself, there's no way I could put myself through that. Well, until the day that my bus driver said out loud on the bus, "Gloria, you live here. This is your bus stop. You need to be getting on the bus from here and not at the apartment complex." And I'll never forget the shame that overtook me in that moment. That was when the series of bullying began for me in middle school. Middle school into high school, our family just experienced a lot of financial tension, if I'm honest. And I was on the free and cost reduced lunch program. Some of our teachers knew our financial struggle and always like gifted me things, which was really incredibly nice. But sometimes it made me feel a certain way because the other students would recognize and would notice. And I did my best to like try to fit in. I did my best to try to make everyone feel like I was one of them. And I wasn't, to be honest. And as a kid, when you experience life, you have a very limited maturity and understanding of who you are. So your identity becomes what you have. And because I had not, I was not. I simply believed because I had nothing that everybody else had, my life didn't matter. I wasn't worthy. I couldn't measure up to what everybody else was able to do and afford. And I quickly had to learn and realize that I cannot live for the approval of others, otherwise I will die at the hand of their rejection. And I learned this on October 29, 2011, when all of the bullying and the shame finally overtook me, and I lived through this downward spiral of suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideation. I didn't want to take my life, but I felt like my existence wasn't appreciated, and so perhaps my disappearance would be. And I think that's the greatest lie that a lot of people who struggle with suicidal ideation can believe. But after you've been told so many negative things about yourself, whether it's your looks, whether it's your name not being American, and teachers even making fun of your name, all of these things end up feeling as though your identity is worthless. And that's how I felt. I had a plan to take my life. I packed with me a Ziploc bag with everything, inside of it that I needed to get myself out of the misery that I was in. And my faith plays a huge role in my journey. And I remember one day just praying one simple prayer, and I said, God, like, if you are real, if you are who you say you are, would you encounter me? That was it. And I went to this youth gathering, ready to take my life. I packed with me everything I needed, and that's where I prayed that prayer. And as I was about to leave, to exit the auditorium in the middle of like a worship set, put my hand on the door, just about to leave, and the person who was speaking and leading in that moment said, there's someone in this room that's getting ready to take their life. God wants to encounter you. And I thought to myself, this is a scam. How in the world do they know? And immediately my mind went into fight or flight. And I thought to myself, well, I'm a pastor's kid. Like, I'm supposed to have my life perfect, put together, figured out. No one can know that I am struggling. No one can know that I spent the last year crying myself to sleep every single night. No one can know that the last 10 years and the last decade of my life has been full of torment, full of shame, full of too much for me to bear. It's easier for me to just pretend to be strong and bow out now. And the communicator responded, obviously not knowing what I was thinking, and said, I know right now lies are filling your mind. I want you to know this is your moment to choose hope. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness. The craziest part was, he said, if that's you, I want you to raise your hand on the count of 3. And he counts to 3, and I was stunned by the amount of people who had their hand raised in the room. I thought it was just me, but it turns out there were plenty of other people who were struggling in the same way that I was struggling. And these were people who had money. These were people who had great home lives. These were people whose parents were active in their life. These were people who we would see on the outside and say, oh, there's no valid reason why they would struggle with suicidal ideation. And that's the day that I learned and realized, one, this idea of you are not alone is not a concept. It is the truth. That no matter what you're struggling with, there are other people who are struggling too, and vulnerability sparks vulnerability. So when those people raised their hand in vulnerability, it gave me the courage to also raise my hand and find the help that I needed. But I also learned that day that the feeling of invisibility can come for all of us, regardless of where we live, what we have, what we do not have. When our identity is attacked, invisibility naturally follows. And so that was the day that I learned I didn't have to pretend to be strong anymore. I could take off my cape, I could take off this mask, and I could be honest about who I am, where I'm at, and the help that I need. And because of that decision, I am here and alive today. And this is why I'm passionate about the work that we do here with Hope Booth. This is why I'm passionate about pioneering a movement where no one goes unseen, and it is my commitment and my honor to get to do this work. I hope you join me in pioneering a movement where no one goes unseen.
Comment the word pioneer to donate and join me in this movement today.